The street light flickered above the crowded intersection where $1,000 cars rolled past without slowing. Rain had just stopped, leaving the asphalt slick and shining under the neon glow. A small figure stood at the corner, barely visible in the shadows between the bright storefronts. She was 7 years old, maybe 8, with tangled braided hair and a dress that had once been pink but was now streaked with dirt and something darker. Her small hands gripped the handlebars of a purple bicycle that looked like it had been through a war. Hello friends, welcome to Black Bite Stories. Before we begin today's story, make sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to tell us in the comments, where are you watching from? We love hearing from our global family. The bike's paint was peeling in long strips, revealing rust underneath. The front basket was held together with duct tape and twisted wire. One of the pedals was bent at an angle that couldn't be comfortable to ride. But the little girl held on to it like it was the last solid thing in a world that had turned to quicksand. Around her neck hung a piece of cardboard on a string, the words written in crayon with the shaky letters of a child's hand. For sale. My mommy needs surgery. Please help. Cars kept passing. Businessmen in suits stared straight ahead. Women in expensive dresses looked away. A taxi slowed for just a moment, the driver's eyes meeting the little girl's through the window. Then he accelerated and disappeared into the stream of red taillights. The girl's lips moved, forming words that no one could hear over the traffic. Please, sir. Please buy my bike. My mommy is dying. Her voice cracked on the last word, but she didn't cry. She had learned 3 days ago that tears didn't help. Behind her, 2 blocks away under the concrete shadow of the 5th Street Bridge, her mother lay on a donated blanket, shivering despite the humid summer air. Deborah Jackson had been beautiful once. She had the kind of smile that could make strangers feel like family, the kind of laugh that turned heads in grocery stores. But 3 days sleeping on concrete had carved her face into something hollow and gray. The infection in her lungs was spreading, turning each breath into a labor, each heartbeat into a countdown. This morning, little Gloria had half-carried, half-dragged her mother 8 blocks to St. Mary's Hospital. A 7-year-old girl supporting a 130-pound woman, moving inches at a time while people walked past and pretended not to see. The doctor had been kind, but clear. Your mother needs surgery. Today. Without it, she has maybe 48 hours. Then came the question that shattered everything. Do you have insurance? Can you pay? Gloria had stood in that bright white hospital room, her mother barely conscious on the examination table, and felt the world tilt. No insurance, no money, no family to call. Just a purple bicycle with peeling paint, and a cardboard sign that said everything she had left to say. The doctor had given them pain medication, enough to buy a few hours, and sent them back to the street. I'm sorry, he'd said, and she believed he meant it. But sorry didn't pay for surgery. So now Gloria stood under the street light, offering the only thing she owned to strangers who didn't want it. She had been standing there for 3 hours. Her legs trembled. Her stomach felt like it had been scooped out and left empty. But she didn't move because moving meant giving up, and giving up meant watching her mother die. A group of teenagers passed, laughing about something on their phones. One of them saw her sign and nudged his friend. They laughed harder and kept walking. Then the black car appeared. It was different from the others, moving slower, more deliberate. The paint was so perfect it looked like liquid obsidian, reflecting the streetlights like a dark mirror. The car slowed even more as it approached, and Gloria felt her heart jump into her throat. The vehicle stopped directly in front of her, the engine purring with expensive precision. For a long moment, nothing happened. Gloria just stood there, gripping her bicycle, staring at her own reflection in the tinted window. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out, unfolding to his full height with the kind of presence that made the street feel smaller. He was tall, over 6 feet, with broad shoulders and a bearing that said he'd never had to ask twice for anything. His suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, probably worth more than Gloria's entire life savings before her father had stolen it. His shoes caught the streetlight and gleamed. But it was his face that made Gloria hold her breath. It wasn't a cruel face, but it wasn't soft either. It was the face of a man who'd seen too much to be easily moved, carved into hard lines around the jaw and eyes. His skin was deep brown, weathered at the temples with gray just starting to thread through his close-cut hair. His eyes were dark and unreadable, the kind of eyes that could look at a balance sheet or a human tragedy with the same measured assessment. He stood there for 3 long seconds just looking at Gloria. Then his gaze dropped to the sign around her neck. Something flickered across his face, too fast for Gloria to read. His jaw tightened. His hands, which had been relaxed at his sides, slowly curled into fists. He stared at those crayon words like they were written in a language only he could understand. For sale. My mommy needs surgery. Please help. When he finally looked at the bicycle, his expression didn't change, but Gloria saw his throat move, like he was swallowing something bitter. What's your name? His voice was deep, quiet, controlled. Not gentle, but not cruel either. Just factual, like he was starting a negotiation. Gloria, she whispered. Her voice sounded so small compared to his. How old are you, Gloria? 7. The man's jaw clenched tighter. He looked away for a moment, up at the dark sky where no stars could pierce the city lights. When he looked back, his eyes had changed somehow, grown harder and sadder at the same time. Where's your mother now? Gloria pointed back toward the bridge, her hand shaking. Under there, she's really sick. The hospital said she needs surgery, or she single quotes, LL ... double quotes. She couldn't finish the sentence. Saying it out loud would make it too real. The man followed her pointing finger with his eyes. Even from here, 2 blocks away, you could see the dark space under the bridge where the homeless gathered. His expression grew colder, but Gloria realized the cold wasn't directed at her. It was anger, pure and controlled, aimed at something bigger than this moment. And your father? The question came out sharp, like the words hurt his mouth. Gloria looked down at her worn sneakers. He kicked us out 3 days ago. He took all our money and said we could sleep on the street. He said he didn't care what happened to us. The silence that followed was so heavy Gloria could feel it pressing on her shoulders. When she looked up, the man's face had transformed into something that would have scared her if she wasn't so desperate. His hands were fists inside his pockets now, and the muscles in his jaw were working like he was grinding his teeth to powder. What's your father's name? The question came out quiet, almost gentle, but there was something underneath it that sounded like a promise of consequences. Gideon, Gloria said softly. Gideon Jackson. But he doesn't want us anymore. The man closed his eyes briefly, like her words had physically struck him. When he opened them again, he looked at the bicycle Gloria was clutching. The broken, taped-together purple bicycle that was clearly worth about $15 on a generous day. He stared at it for a long moment. Then he did something Gloria didn't expect. This tall, powerful man in his perfect suit knelt down on the dirty sidewalk, so he was at her eye level. Up close, Gloria could see the lines around his eyes, the gray in his hair, the way his jaw was set like he was holding back an earthquake. How much do you need for the surgery? He asked, and his voice was gentler now, like he was talking to something fragile that might break. Gloria's eyes filled with tears. I don't know exactly. The doctor said a lot. More than I can get from my bike. I know nobody wants it. I know it's broken. But I had to try. I had to do something. The tears started falling and she couldn't stop them. I can't let my mommy die. I can't. The man reached out slowly and placed his hand on her shoulder. His touch was careful, like he was afraid she might shatter. You're very brave, he said quietly. Braver than most adults I know. Your mother is lucky to have you. But I couldn't save her, Gloria sobbed. I tried so hard. I brought her to the hospital. I've been standing here for hours trying to sell my bike and nobody wants it. Nobody cares. And Mommy is going to... She couldn't say it. The man's hand tightened on her shoulder, not painfully but firmly, like he was trying to transfer some of his strength into her small body. Listen to me, Gloria. What's the name of the hospital where your mother needs surgery? St. Mary's, the one with the big red cross. The man nodded once, decisive. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a wallet, thick with bills. Gloria watched with wide eyes as he pulled out more money than she'd ever seen in her life. 20s, 50s, hundreds, all stacked together. He held them out to her, and Gloria saw his hand was steady, even though his eyes looked storm-dark with emotion. "This should be enough for the surgery," he said. "Take it." Gloria stared at the money, then at him, then back at the money. Her hands started shaking so badly she was afraid she'd drop it. "But my bike, don't you want to buy my bike?" The man shook his head slowly, and for the first time, something that might have been a smile touched the corner of his mouth. It was sad, but it was real. "Keep your bike, Gloria. You're going to need it. When your mother gets better, she's going to want to watch you ride it again." "I can't just take your money," Gloria stammered. "That's too much. I have to give you something." The man pressed money into Gloria's hands and told her to return to her mother immediately. As she described the spot under the bridge, he stepped aside and made a call, his voice suddenly sharp, authoritative. He demanded an ambulance, the best surgical team, and immediate priority at St. Mary's. "Bill everything to my foundation," he ordered. Then he turned back to Gloria, gentle again, telling her she no longer had to worry about money. When she asked why he was helping, something in him cracked. "Because someone should have helped me once, and nobody did," he said quietly. He introduced himself as Raymond Cross and told her to stay with her mother until help arrived. Gloria ran back to the bridge, clutching the money. She told her mother an ambulance was coming, that a rich man had stopped, had paid for everything. Deborah whispered, "An angel." The ambulance arrived with urgency, the paramedics treating Deborah like her life mattered. Gloria climbed inside with her bike, holding her mother's hand as they rushed toward the hospital, toward hope. At St. Mary's, a surgical team was already prepared. Gloria waited in a quiet room, scared but believing, for the first time in days, that they might survive. Then the door opened and Raymond Cross walked in. He'd loosened his tie, and there was a tiredness around his eyes that hadn't been there before, but his presence still filled the room. When he saw Gloria sitting there alone, something in his expression softened. "How's your mother?" he asked, sitting in the chair beside her. Gloria waited anxiously outside the operating room, tears streaming, as she told Raymond the doctors said her mother would be okay. "You saved her," she whispered, gripping his sleeve. Raymond gently corrected her, but she insisted he had stopped, he had helped, and that changed everything. When she asked why he helped, Raymond finally revealed the truth. He once had a daughter, Emily, who died at 6 because he couldn't afford the treatment she needed. Every door had closed on him. He vowed that if he ever had the power, no child would suffer like she did. Hours later, the surgeon returned with good news. Deborah's surgery was a complete success. Gloria collapsed into a chair, overwhelmed. Raymond's eyes shone as he told her her mother would live. Gloria hugged him tightly, and he slowly embraced her back. He gave her his personal number and promised a safe home once her mother recovered. When she worried they couldn't repay him, he explained Emily's Hope Foundation existed for families like theirs. Gloria asked what he'd do about her father. Raymond said he would make sure the man could never hurt them again through legal action or consequences. Before leaving, he promised he'd return in the morning. Gloria finally lay down to rest, knowing she wasn't alone anymore. Gloria lay down on the couch, wrapped in the hospital blanket that smelled like detergent and safety. For the first time in 3 days, she was warm. She was clean. She was in a place where no one could hurt her. Her mother was alive in a room nearby, getting better with every breath. And somewhere in the city, Raymond Cross was making sure her father would never threaten them again. Gloria closed her eyes and felt something she hadn't felt in 3 days, peace. Just before she drifted off to sleep, she whispered into the darkness, "Thank you, Emily. Thank you for teaching your daddy to help people like us. I'll never forget it. I promise I'll help people too when I grow up, just like he's helping us." Across the city, in a dim bar that smelled like stale beer and broken dreams, Gideon Jackson was on his 4th drink. He hadn't thought about Deborah or Gloria once since he'd kicked them out. As far as he was concerned, they were someone else's problem now. He was laughing with his buddies, telling crude jokes, feeling free for the first time in years. No nagging wife, no crying kid, just him and his freedom. Then the door opened and a man walked in who didn't belong. Everyone in the bar felt it immediately, the way animals sense a predator. The man was tall, dressed in an expensive suit, with eyes that could cut steel. He walked straight to Gideon's bar stool and stopped. Gideon Jackson? Gideon turned, his beer-fogged brain trying to process this stranger. Yeah? Who's asking? The man pulled out his phone and held it up. On the screen was a photo of Deborah lying under the bridge, her face gray with sickness. Gideon's alcohol-soaked mind took a moment to understand what he was seeing. What, where did you, double quotes. The man swiped to the next photo. Gloria, standing on the street corner with her bicycle, the cardboard sign around her neck. For sale. My mommy needs surgery. The next photo showed the ambulance, Deborah being loaded on a stretcher, an oxygen mask over her face. Your wife almost died tonight, the man said, and his voice was quiet, but somehow filled the entire bar. Your 7-year-old daughter stood on a street corner for 3 hours trying to sell her only possession to save her mother's life. The mother you threw out 3 days ago. The family you abandoned to sleep on the street. Gideon's face went pale. His friends had quietly moved away, not wanting any part of this. I didn't mean for anyone to get hurt, Raymond Cross, a powerful businessman, confronted Gideon with a choice. Sign away his parental rights, enter treatment, and cooperate with the investigation or face prison. Terrified, Gideon looked at the photos of his wife and daughter suffering because of him. For the first time he truly saw what he had become. He chose to sign, whispering that they deserved better. 5 days later, Deborah left the hospital weak but alive. Raymond took her and Gloria to a clean apartment funded by his foundation, promising they would never be homeless again. Deborah cried, asking why he was helping. Raymond simply said someone should have helped him years ago, and Gloria had reminded him of his purpose. Their new home had everything they needed, even Gloria's purple bike. As months passed, Deborah found work, and Gideon entered treatment. Raymond visited often, quietly becoming family. Years later, Gloria graduated high school, then medical school, with a scholarship from Raymond's foundation. At her white coat ceremony, she spoke about the day a stranger stopped to help a desperate little girl, and how compassion changed her life. Raymond watched with tears of pride. Gloria told him, "We did it." He answered, "You did it." And that Raymond and Gloria both knew was the real miracle. Not the money, not the surgery, not even the survival. The real miracle was that in a world that teaches us to look away, one man chose to look, to see, to act, and 2 lives were forever changed because of it.